Canada, famous for its geese, hockey, kind people, and most importantly, maple syrup. Maple syrup is literally the symbol of the country, and there's a very good reason for that. Syrup is much more than a sweet ingredient. It is an enormous industry with thousands of Canadians relying on it for their livelihood. It is more valuable than oil and is guarded with heavier security than most banks. Overseeing its production is a ruthless cartel, given permission by the government to ensure global syrup supply never falls below demand. So far, they have been successful, but not without pushback. Riots, black markets, and theft have plagued the industry for decades, causing the cartel to tighten its grip. However, one event would expose the weakness of the cartel and showcase the vast network of the maple syrup black market. Over 70% of the world's maple syrup is produced in Canada, most notably Quebec, who produces 90% of all Canadian syrup. In 2024, Canada produced approximately 119 million kilograms of syrup. The enormous amount of syrup coming out of Canada has created a global reliance on them to maintain consistent supply. Syrup farming is a very inconsistent process that varies heavily from season to season. Collecting enough maple syrup relies on a precise mix of warm and freezing weather for larger quantities of sweet sap to flow. This is bad news for pancake lovers everywhere. Without predictable harvests and the majority of global supply concentrated in such a small area, sellers never know if they will have enough syrup to meet demand. This means syrup prices could never stay consistent and would vary drastically each year. For a long time, this was the reality of the syrup industry, so a few syrup producers decided to make a change. Their goal was to create a reserve, one the country could rely on in years of shortages. Formed in 1966, the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers set quotas for every farmer that sets a maximum amount they are allowed to sell per year. Any excess syrup is taken, without compensation, to be stored in the Global Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve. When a bad season hits, the reserve syrup is released onto the global markets. Farmers are only paid once their syrup has left the reserve, which could take years. This strategy worked and has allowed Canada to stabilize the price of syrup globally and ensure it is always available. Known colloquially as the Federation, the FPAQ is now a government-sanctioned organization of over 10,000 syrup producers, with authority to keep and deploy armed units to ensure the strategic syrup reserve remains full. That's right, somewhere in the world there are armed guards showing up to farms demanding maple syrup. In some cases, fines for repeat offenders who violated Federation quotas accumulated to amounts of 500,000 Canadian dollars or more. In 2010, protests broke out that caused the Federation to place guards in territories of producers and even confiscate entire crops from rebel producers. The strict enforcement of quotas by the Federation have caused many farmers to smuggle their syrup surplus across provincial borders or into the United States, where the FPAQ has no power. Farmers who sell on the black market get to take advantage of the Federation's artificially inflated prices, with a barrel of syrup usually valued at 25 times the amount of a barrel of crude oil. Farmers could profit without having to pay Federation fees or wait years to be paid for their surplus. The black market was a great option for syrup farmers up until 2012. Following the syrup protests of 2010, a large surplus of syrup caused a fourth reserve warehouse to be opened. Until then, there were only 3 reserve houses, the largest being the size of 5 football fields. The security at these 3 were no joke, with 8-foot-tall security walls, cameras that cover every angle, specialized access codes that change routinely, and armed guards. But this 4th warehouse was more temporary and had much less security. This weak point allowed a group of producers to take advantage. Starting in 2011, a small number of employees began smuggling the 270 kilogram barrels out of the warehouse and transporting them to sugar shacks where the syrup would be siphoned and refined. The barrels were then refilled with water and replaced at the warehouse. For months, this went entirely unnoticed. The group of 17 thieves set up a distribution network within the existing black market to distribute their syrup out of Quebec and away from the Federation. Quickly, the network grew, reaching Ontario and New Brunswick and even across the border into Vermont and New Hampshire. Months went on, and the group became emboldened. They began directly siphoning syrup from barrels at the warehouse without refilling them. Their arrogance would be their undoing. During a routine inventory inspection, an employee dislodged a barrel and fell. As he lay on the ground, watching the 270 kilogram barrel fall towards him, he knew he was going to die. Except the barrel didn't kill him. In fact, it was empty. The discovery of the empty barrel sparked the largest agricultural investigation in history, requiring international cooperation. The mastermind behind the operation was a man named Richard Valliere. In 2022, his sentence was finally given. He would spend 8 years in prison for the 9,500 barrels he and his syrup thieves stole. In total, the theft was equal to $18.7 million or 30 million Canadian dollars. It is the largest theft in Canadian history. Thanks for tuning into Weird Universe. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want more videos like this.